For centuries, there had been vague rumors, fanciful stories, puzzling passages in ancient books. And for centuries, no man had the curiosity and courage to investigate the remote wilderness where strange and wonderful ruins were said to exist. In 1839, however, two adventurers began to explore the wilds of Guatemala and Honduras. John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood barely believed themselves the wild stories that had lured them here. It was true. There was not one great abandoned city hidden in the tropical jungles, but scores of them. Catherwood, an artist, faithfully depicted scenes that would amaze the world. Perhaps to justify centuries of conquest and exploitation, all Native Americans had long been characterized as ignorant barbarians. Stevens wrote in his journals, "America, say historians, was peopled by savages. But savages never reared these structures. Savages never carved these stones." Architecture, sculpture, and painting, all the arts which embellish life, had flourished in this overgrown forest. Orators, warriors, and statesmen, beauty, ambition, and glory had lived and passed away, and none knew that such things had been or could tell of their past existence. More than 100 years have passed since these words were written, yet many of the mysteries and all of the wonders Stevens felt endure to this day. On the eastern coast of Mexico lies the fortress temple of Tulum. It is but one of more than 80 known major building sites of the people known as the Maya. Their civilization rose soon after the birth of Christ, but it had disintegrated before Columbus reached the New World. At their height, the Maya spread through much of southern Mexico and Central America. The Maya were master builders and artists. Their expressive portraits of themselves and their gods preserved the Mayan spirit across a gulf of 1,000 years or more. Who were the Maya? What inspired their soaring culture, so advanced, yet so unlike anything known elsewhere in the ancient world? The single most comprehensive view of Mayan society is provided by the spectacular murals of Bonampak. Lost in deep jungle, not discovered until 1946, 3 vaulted rooms are embellished with paintings 1,100 years old. The predominant scenes and characters provide at least a partial understanding of Mayan life. Always the central figure, the imperious Mayan lord. The Mayans' ruling class undoubtedly proclaimed themselves living descendants of God. Maya religion and learning were closely intertwined. And in the same period when Europe sank into the Dark Ages, the Maya intellect soared. This is most probably a Mayan observatory. We know the Mayas' knowledge of both astronomy and mathematics were remarkably advanced. Their calendar was more accurate than the one in common use today. An archaeologist has observed, the rhythm of time enchanted the Maya. The never-ending flow of days from the eternity of the future into the eternity of the past filled them with wonder. And it seems more than coincidence that the sun sets at points in line with the ancient stone viewing ports on the precise days when summer and winter begin. Only centuries of patient observation and record-keeping could account for the Mayas' astronomy. The fruit of this was power. Who could question the divinity of the leader who could foretell when a shadow would pass upon the moon or the sun would disappear? Among the foremost living authorities on the Maya is Dr. Eric Thompson, now retired and living in England.
The ruling families among the Maya, we know, claimed to be representatives on earth of the great god Itzamna, and they were able to arrange things for the benefit of the whole community. In other words, the farmer needed his rains at certain times, and the members of the priest nobility said, okay, we'll fix this up, we'll put in the ceremonies to bring the rain when you want it, but on the other hand, you'll have to help build the temples, because unless we have these temples and structures like that to honor the gods, why, the gods are not going to let you have the rain when you want it.
The great ceremonial cities of the Maya were built without the aid of metal tools, by men who had no wheeled vehicles, horses, or oxen. Magnificent in concept and design, they reflect centuries of dogged labor, directed with amazing ambition and intelligence. Wrote the late Frank Lloyd Wright, "Here a grandeur arose in a scale of total building never since excelled and seldom equaled by man." The characteristic Maya pyramids had long been accepted simply as towering stages for ceremony and religious sacrifice. But Alberto Ruz, head of Mayan studies at the University of Mexico, suspected that at least one pyramid might be something more. Dr. Ruz was drawn to the Mayan city of Palenque, deep in the rainforest of southern Mexico, and to one particular pyramid called the Temple of the Inscriptions. Since the first day I entered the Temple of the Inscriptions, my attention was called to this slab, forming part of the floor. It has holes with stone plugs that you can pull out and replace. Roos removed the slab and began excavating rubble beneath it. A hidden stairway was revealed, leading down into the heart of the pyramid, a twisting descent of 70 feet. In 1952, after 12 months' labor, Roos discovered what had never been found before in a great American pyramid: the tomb of a Mayan ruler, sealed for more than 1,000 years. The skull was covered by an elaborate jade mask, and along the stairway from the pyramid top to the tomb itself, a hollow tube, evidence that the Maya believed that somehow they might inform the dead or receive his commands. Inscriptions on the stone slab covering the burial have been partially deciphered. They indicate that the ruler was born in 650 AD, came to power at the age of 28, and reigned for 12 years. Evidently, the entire pyramid was designed and built as his memorial. The absolute authority of the Maya ruler was certainly basic to the rise of their civilization, and Dr. Thompson believes it may also have led to its downfall.
Maya culture, of course, reached its height around about 900 AD, and then you find the cities, ceremonial centers, being abandoned one by one. I think myself that there was a revolt of the peasant class against this group of the nobility, that the nobility were getting too much involved in more esoteric forms of religion, and I think that they were getting too much involved in warfare, and therefore they lost the sympathy and interest of the peasant.
The fate of the Maya civilization and many other crucial questions remain unresolved. And this is all the more frustrating to scholars because of the Maya's obsession with the passage of time and the keeping of records. Maya hieroglyphics adorn countless statues and ceremonial buildings. So far, they are only partly deciphered, despite exhaustive scientific analysis. We have learned to interpret the Maya number and dating system, a sophisticated arrangement of bars and dots. We owe much of our knowledge to the 3 existing Maya books. No one can say what knowledge was lost when countless other books were destroyed. Scientists can only read with anguish the report of a Spanish bishop who wrote, "We found a large number of books, and as they contained nothing but superstition and lies of the devil, we burned them all." Well before the Spanish came, however, Mayan society had abruptly declined. Disease, drought, warfare, or revolution, one or all may have been the cause. We only know that the massive buildings suddenly ceased, the great ceremonial cities were abandoned, and the tropical forests reclaimed the mighty evidence of Maya achievement. In the late 1930s, a series of scientific expeditions sought confirmation of reports that traces of an ancient culture very different from the Maya could be found in a remote area of Veracruz. The evidence discovered could not have been more dramatic. Gigantic stone heads averaging 18 tons were found up to 80 miles from the nearest natural source of stone. The name Olmec was given the newly discovered people. But who were they? How did they relate to the Maya? By mere chance, a vital clue was found by expedition leader Dr. Matthew Sterling.
One of the workmen told me of having encountered with his whole bit of solid stone that was projecting above the ground. So we excavated this and found this bar and dot date running across the back of the monument. We deciphered it and found that it carried a date of November the 4th, 31 BC. That's a very interesting point, because it had always been assumed that the Maya had invented the long count system of numeration, which is a very accurate calendar and a continuous calendar, and that was always looked upon as probably the greatest single achievement of the Maya. It now seems quite certain that it was the Olmec who invented this calendar and that the Maya took it over from them.
November 4th, 31 BC, a full 300 years before the oldest Maya date. Thus the Olmec were recognized as the apparent source of all American civilization. But further excavation has yielded more questions than answers. Typical of the cryptic traces of the Olmec is a group of miniature jade figures discovered in 1955. Evidence indicates the Olmec intentionally buried the figures more than 2,000 years ago as part of a symbolic ritual. Positioned exactly as they were found, the figures surely portray a scene of vital importance to the Olmec. But is this an assembly of their gods or a confrontation of men? They stand today enigmatic messengers from the distant past, firing the imagination, but defying analysis. Today, further excavation has traced the Olmec back more than 3,000 years and posed a significant dilemma for archaeologists like Yale University's Michael Coe.
We have no idea where the people came from who made these monuments. We've only compounded the problem at sites like La Venta and Tres Zapotes and San Lorenzo because we've made Olmec so old and pushed it so far back that it has no precedent. Now, ordinarily, when people are confronted with a situation like that, they say, well, they came from overseas. They came from Asia, or they were Palestinians, or they were peoples from Northern Europe, or anywhere else, or Africa, for that matter. I'm not willing to consider this right now, but someday we may be forced into such a thing. Right now, I will take the conservative point of view and say that there, somewheres in Mexico and Central America, there will be found a place, a region, which has evidence for early sculpture and early art that's more ancient than the Olmec. So far, however, I must admit that I'm baffled.
To seek the genesis of American civilization is to confront one of the most explosive issues in archaeology today. Many scientists maintain that civilization in America was a spontaneous development, uninfluenced by other cultures of the ancient world. But some suspect that a full history of America would reveal epic ocean voyages long before Columbus, before the Vikings. They contend that the ultimate beginnings of American civilization are not hidden in the remote recesses of the land, but must be read in the winds and currents of the open sea. As man has sought to comprehend the remarkable genesis and variety of life on our planet, the theory of evolution has revealed the ultimate common ancestry of all living creatures. The dazzling spectrum of life eventually included the man-apes of Africa, and after some millions of years, men like ourselves. Migratory game herds may well have lured the first primitive hunters onto the American continent. It is certain that the first Americans came from Asia and spread southward from Alaska. Moving gradually, generation after generation, they populated a new world. They were men of the Stone Age, striving for mere survival. The true discoverers of America, they probably had not even the concept of what they had done. Later, civilization rose in America. Man's intellect soared. His society took on new creative forms. In the rest of the world, the rise of civilized man can be traced back to common roots. America seems to have seen a separate and isolated path of human advancement. Or is there instead some connection between, for instance, the pyramids of Mexico and the roughly similar ones built in ancient Egypt? The parallels are enticing. We have long known that the Egyptian pyramids were the monuments and tombs of Egyptian rulers. And we now have discovered that at least some Maya pyramids in America fill the same function. Some forms of ancient American architecture show remarkable similarity in design to structures built in the Far East. Miniature statues of four-legged animals mounted on wheels have been found in American excavations, and similar ones were made in the Far East. Strangely, the practical use of the wheel was never utilized in America, though the principle obviously was known. Could the Pacific coast of Ecuador have been reached by Japanese fishermen thousands of years before the voyage of Columbus? Recent excavations here have suggested this highly provocative theory. Smithsonian archaeologist Dr. Betty Meggers was an advisor on the project along with her husband, Dr. Clifford Evans. They have carefully analyzed puzzling specimens of ancient pottery from the Ecuadorian site. Seen here in photographs, ancient Japanese pottery, which is remarkably similar to the Ecuadorian specimens. Both date to roughly 3000 BC. Such selected comparisons, convincing to the layman's eye, provoke heated controversy among archaeologists. But Doctors Meggers and Evans maintain that the best explanation of their evidence is that Japanese fishermen, lost in violent storms, brought this style of pottery to South America, a voyage of at least 8,000 miles.
Now, up to now, nobody has taken the kind of evidence that we presented and shown that the idea that it came from this pottery complex of Middle Jamon is totally wrong. In other words, to date, the only kind of arguments we've had are, it's too far away, the ocean is too wide, how could anyone live? I just don't believe it. That's not science.
Was it possible for ancient seafarers to cross the great oceans, even with highly favorable currents and winds? The most direct approach to this question has been taken by the celebrated Thor Heyerdahl. In 1969, Dr. Heyerdahl constructed the Ra, a papyrus ship based on ancient Egyptian designs and named in honor of the Egyptian sun god. Heyerdahl's first vessel, attempting an Atlantic crossing, broke up at sea, but the determined Norwegian tried again, building and launching Ra II in Morocco only a year later. The vessel, with a hull composed entirely of slender papyrus reeds bound with ropes and cords, would challenge the Atlantic. Papyrus boats are still used, both in South America and Africa, a fact which Heyerdahl considers more than a coincidence.
I was interested to find out if such a boat actually could have crossed from Africa to America. That is why I built the papyrus ship Ra, according to the designs in the ancient Egyptian tombs, and sailed across. It was not to try to prove that the Egyptians had come first to America. It was to find out if any of these early civilizations in the Mediterranean area, on the coast of Africa, could have preceded the Spaniards in crossing the tropic part of the Atlantic Ocean.
Ships like the Ra were used by the Egyptians and other ancient peoples on lakes and rivers. This much was known. But could they survive the battering of the open sea? Would papyrus retain its buoyancy in salt water? Some laboratory tests indicated that Heyerdahl's paper boat would not float more than 2 weeks. Indeed, as the voyage began, the Ra was sinking ever lower day after day. Writes Heyerdahl, "At the mercy of wind and water, we sail on with the deck perilously close to water level. Seas continue to roar in upon us, but, unknown to us, we have sunk as far as we will go." The Ra survives, and after 57 days, prevailing currents and winds drive her more than 3,200 miles to the Caribbean island of Barbados. Heyerdahl proved his point. But granting that primitive craft could cross the Atlantic, did such voyages have any great impact on ancient America?
I feel that if the Old World had never existed as far as the New World Indians were concerned, that these American Indians would have come up with exactly the same responses as we see they did come up with, that you would have had eventually the development of plant domestication, the taming, cultivation of wild plant foods and the capture of their energy. I think that you would have had villages springing up. I think eventually you would have had these great mound sites, ceremonial centers, cities. I think you would have had priests and kings, the burning of incense, the glorification of dead rulers. All of the things that we see, I think, would have happened anyway, regardless of whether the Old World had existed or not.
Whenever the first Old World voyagers reached America, they found a civilization based on the cultivation of corn. Corn was unknown in the rest of the world until it was exported from America. Where and when did the early Americans first begin to cultivate it? The quest for the origins of American corn agriculture was a compelling challenge for archaeologist Richard McNeish. By 1959, he hoped he was close to success after devoting almost 15 years to the search.
We had a couple of possibilities of where corn might be domesticated, either Peru or Mexico. We narrowed and narrowed and narrowed down the area we had to look, till finally we put in a major expedition in this little valley of Mexico, which is called the Tehuacan Valley.
Dr. McNeish would excavate a number of small caves in an extremely dry area. The dryness supported hope that vegetable food remains could be found intact, and the caves were logical dwellings for primitive early Americans.
The whole place is just honeycombed with little caves. And there's one right in through here. And not only that, the roof of it is all blackened from fires being in it. So we know somebody lived there. Nice and cool inside. At high noon, it's much more comfortable here than out in the sun. And you got a good view out down the valley. And, you know, during the little rainy season we have, you'd still be out of the rain. And if it gets cold, you build a fire in the front of the cave and you warm up the whole thing. It's a perfectly good place, I mean, but there's stuff all over the ground here.
15 years to find this site, followed by 5 seasons of excavation. Such patient, sustained effort is common in archaeology, but only rarely is the result as spectacular as this proved to be. a crude bowl-shaped stone and grinder, necessary implements for making corn flour. Evidence of an increasingly primitive form of agriculture was revealed as the excavation continued. Finally, a tiny plant fragment, the ancient ancestor of modern corn. This reveals the approximate area where corn agriculture began more than 5,000 years ago.
Yeah. This is a corn cob, and it's a real little one.
McNeish's discovery confirmed the basis of all that would follow: a dependable source of food, permanent settlements, and man now free to turn his mind and strength to new and revolutionary tasks.
This was the beginnings of agriculture. This was as great as our idea of the atomic bomb and breaking the atom, and so on and so forth. This was a new source of energy. We now had to have a whole new society. We now had writing, we now had empires, we now had militarism, we now had full-time specialists, we now had cities. In fact, we now had civilization in Mexico.
So it is established that whatever ancient America may have borrowed from Europe, Africa, or Asia, its most fundamental discovery was American. Corn not only made the wonders of the lost world possible, but is today one of the greatest food sources known, flourishing throughout the entire world. As modern man makes his mark in America, ever expanding his building and growth, the lost world is imperiled. Not all secrets of the past are buried in remote jungles and mountain wilderness. Many are already being sealed beneath concrete highways or under the foundations of sprawling subdivisions. Increasingly, archaeologists find themselves in a hectic race to stay ahead of urban development. Excavations like this one in the California desert seek to read the message of the past before it is erased by the future. Archaeologist Tom King.
We have very significant questions to ask in this site, but we have 12 people working here, and we have a lot of acres of ground to cover. And much faster than we can work, the bulldozers are moving in to build the condominiums, to build the housing tracts, to build the new highways that will mean disaster to this archaeological site.
How the needs of man today conflict with the search for his past was dramatized in 1969 when one of the most important excavations in North America was inundated. The site now lies 30 feet beneath the surface of a man-made lake in the state of Washington. Here, before rising waters halted their work, archaeologists managed to save what are generally regarded as the oldest human bones yet found in North America. Scientists agree that the presence of man in the American Northwest more than 8,000 years before the birth of Christ is proved by this human skull cap. In form, it is very similar to modern American Indian and Asiatic peoples, supporting the idea that man came initially to America from Siberia. But when did the first men come? Here, opinions differ. For almost 10 years, an excavation near Barstow, California, has prompted a sharp scientific controversy. Famous for his epic discoveries in East Africa, Dr. L.S.B. Leakey initiated the work carried on by D. Simpson of the San Bernardino County Museum. They contend that stone tools found here show that man was in America at least 50,000 years ago. Despite the doubts of many of his colleagues, Leakey insists that his view will prevail.
Now, for me, it is very, very exciting indeed, because it's confirmed what I've been saying ever since 29, and it's not the oldest that's going to be found, but it is the oldest so far found. The tragedy here is that there's no bone, because the soil is very acid, and we've got nothing like we got it all the way with bones as well. We will never find good bone here. That doesn't matter. Having established this site, we can go on from here, and the young generation will go on. And my guess is that 20 years from now, this will be commonplace.
Archaeology in North America began with the widespread and puzzling earthen mounds found throughout the eastern half of the continent. Tens of thousands exist from Ontario into Florida, from Massachusetts to Nebraska. They are the work of man, but what people built them, and what purpose did they serve? Early European settlers were reluctant to believe that Indians could have built so ambitiously. They credited the mounds to the biblical lost tribes of Israel, or even survivors of the legendary continent of Atlantis. But scientific investigation proved that they were the work of ancient Indian cultures. Many of the mounds contain burials. Typically, along with the skeletons, tools and art objects are found, some of extraordinary beauty and sophistication. Differences in the style of these artifacts have helped to make clear that the practice of building mounds was shared by many Indian cultures. But the materials used pose fascinating questions. Some could only have originated at least 1,000 miles from where they were buried. Designs in rare mica found hundreds of miles from its nearest natural source. A copper axe head found in Georgia, mined in northern Michigan. Ornaments of seashell from the coast of Florida were transported to Georgia and even far north into Ohio and Illinois. It can only be concluded that the mound builders maintained a far-flung and complex trading system. Near St. Louis is the most impressive mound site of all, Cahokia. It is centered around the largest mound in North America. Excavations here are revealing evidence of an American Indian culture far in advance of any popular conceptions. Unlike the stereotyped nomadic Indian hunting tribes, these ancient Americans had mastered large-scale agriculture and building. Possibly influenced by Mexican cultures, their largest mound was undoubtedly a religious monument. Cahokia's curator of archaeology, Jim Anderson.
The mound was built by bringing in basket loads of dirt and piling them up. Each basket weighed approximately 55 pounds. Here you can see this light spot represents probably one basket load. It is estimated that it took nearly 300 years to construct this mound.
The sustained, methodical building of this gigantic mound could only have been accomplished by a large and highly organized population. And at about the time the mound was completed, the people of Cahokia fortified their settlement in an equally impressive manner.
This is a reconstructed segment of the stockade that once surrounded the central city of Cahokia. We have inserted telephone poles into the original post holes and trenches. The stockade covered approximately 250 to 300 acres and surrounded 10 or 15 of the mounds in the central city.
Only the word city is adequate to describe Cahokia. Its estimated population was 10 to 15,000. It endured for centuries, but abruptly declined around 1250 AD and was abandoned when the first Europeans saw it. The same mysterious decline seems to have affected most other mound cultures. In about the same period, but in the far more barren region of the American Southwest, extraordinary cliff dwellings were created by the Anasazi, probable ancestors of modern Pueblo tribes. Mesa Verde and other Anasazi settlements show that they were superbly adapted to their harsh environment. Nevertheless, it was probably a sustained and catastrophic drought beginning in 1276 AD and lasting more than 20 years that forced abandonment of many Anasazi pueblos. Perhaps the most remarkable Anasazi structure is little known, the dwelling complex of Pueblo Bonito in New Mexico. Tapered walls of stone, up to 4 stories high, formed a labyrinth of over 800 rooms. This was the largest single dwelling in all America, surpassed only in the 1880s with the introduction of structural steel. In an environment where survival itself is a high achievement, the people of Pueblo Bonito created their spectacular mansion. In the desert's deep silence, the genius and vigor of the Anasazi echoes still. The rich heritage of the North American Indian today is still only partially recognized. Despite abundant evidence to the contrary, the history of civilization here is too often said to begin in 1492. And while nothing can restore the lost world, its history, at least, can be rediscovered, its monuments rescued from oblivion. Under the streets and buildings of Mexico City, the capital of the last great Middle American empire lies buried. The people were the Aztec. The city was called Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs, benefiting from the knowledge of the Maya and other cultures before them, wandered here from the north. According to legend, their gods instructed them to build their city on an island where an eagle perched on a giant cactus. Aztec art and life were dominated by a complex and cruel religion centering on human sacrifice. Seeking captives for ritual execution, they were constantly at war with neighboring peoples. The Aztec were greatly feared and were themselves oppressed by the insatiable demands of their gods. In the year 1519, Montezuma, the Aztec emperor, fell victim to a mounting sense of impending tragedy. Unknown to Montezuma, Hernan Cortez, with some 500 soldiers, was at this moment bound for Mexico, determined on conquest and plunder. Cortez could not know how a strange pattern of circumstances favored him. A potent Aztec legend persisted that an ancient exiled god would soon return from the direction of the rising sun. Cortez would be mistaken for that god and take ruthless advantage of the confusion. Merciless in battle, brilliantly led by the unscrupulous Cortez, the Spanish would conquer the Aztecs and become masters of Mexico in less than 2 years. Far to the south in Peru, yet another empire, larger, richer, and more benevolent than the Aztec, united some 6 million subjects. The Incas' capital, Cuzco, was guarded by an immense stone fortress, typical of their masterful engineering. From Cuzco, an efficient and powerful central government administered the far-flung outposts of the empire. It was a social order the Romans would have admired, as tightly joined as the massive stonework at Cuzco. Even today, a knife blade cannot penetrate between the hand-hewn granite blocks. The Inca's own sense of security and standard of honor had tragic results. In 1532, the army of Francisco Pizarro, professing to come in peace, seized the trusting Inca emperor and murdered at least 2,000 unarmed Inca leaders. The captive emperor offered Pizarro tons of gold in return for his freedom. The news was probably swiftly spread. 7,000 miles of paved roads and pathways linked the Inca cities. Relay runners would soon tell of the infamous act that would crush their empire. The Spanish had broken their word. The ransom was paid, but the emperor was then put to death. One Inca citadel was never discovered by the Spanish. Abandoned for centuries, unknown to archaeologists until 1911, Machu Picchu symbolizes the grandeur and the tragedy of ancient America. We are gradually learning how over thousands of years men struggled to a lofty pinnacle of achievement. But what might the people of America have created if left unmolested? The ultimate tragedy of the lost world is that this question can never be answered.
In Search of the Lost World, a General Electric monogram presentation.